Welcome to another episode of the Bamateur Hour. I'm Bama John. Today is Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, in the year of our Lord. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Bamateur Hour. We now have over 700 subscribers on our YouTube channel and growing. We now have thousands of listeners listening to the podcast wherever you access our content. Thank you. Thank you. We are on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, iHeart Podcast, Spotify, Podcast Index, and RSS Podcast. Subscribe, like, and follow us on any of the platforms where you access our content. You can find us on Facebook, on the Bamateur Hour Facebook. Please follow and like us there. This is the Bamateur Hour, where we talk about Alabama football, basketball, and other Alabama sports-related topics. I am blessed to be here today. As of now, with the summer, I am doing rewind episodes, and I'm doing these solos. Our Bamateur Hour roundtable has been MIA as they're enjoying their summers. So I'm doing these podcasts solo for the time being, but we hope to bring you some more Bamateur Hour roundtables soon with the usual cast. Again, I am Bama John, and let's launch into this week's episode. On this rewind relook at the Alabama football season for 2024, we're going to look at the wins over Wisconsin and Georgia, as Alabama started very strong to start out with a 4-0 season. We're going to look at the lessons learned, the issues exposed, and the areas that were identified as problems in 2024 that need to be addressed over the summer and need to be fixed in 2025 if Alabama wants to get back to the playoffs. But at this point, these wins over Wisconsin and wins over Georgia were highlights of the season, and really got everybody excited and fired up about how good this 2024 Alabama team could be. But unfortunately, though, that optimism waned as the rest of the season played out, and Alabama proved they were not, in 2024, a championship caliber team. Very good team, but not championship caliber team. What can we talk about, and what are the themes that we're going to see in these two wins over Wisconsin and Georgia? There were lots of explosive plays, yet there were still bunches of penalties. Alabama struggled to put together long, sustained drives, yet they had a lot of scoring drives, but those scoring drives were all powered by a few big explosive plays on each drive, 2 or 3 plays that resulted in moving the ball down the field in big chunks, and then Alabama was able to punch it in, mostly with touchdowns in these two games, although they did have a couple of field goals that were key, and also got a safety. What we found out is the team was talented but undisciplined at times. Those penalties, people not doing their assignments on defense, blowing coverages, blowing assignments, missing tackles, those reared their ugly heads in these games, particularly in the second half against Georgia, but it really didn't prove to be fatal until the next game against Vanderbilt, but we'll talk about that on a future rewind episode. We did find out that the quarterback cannot pick apart the defense with the traditional passing game. Milroe is just not a pocket passer. He's an explosive passer, can throw the ball downfield. He's very accurate on deep balls. He's great at moving around and extending plays. He's certainly great with his legs in the running game and trying to escape as long as he doesn't hold on the ball too long. But he is not a pocket passer, not great on the short intermediate throwing. And again, we saw this in these two games, and it would play out later. The offensive line played better in both games and looked competent, and as Alabama put 42 points up against Wisconsin and 41 points up against Georgia. The defense had a bend but don't break mentality. We certainly shut down Wisconsin, but that was helped by turnovers and also by knocking the quarterback out of the game. We also got timely turnovers in both games, which helped the defense look better than they truly were. But the defense did progress over the course of the season. The offense really reached its peak in the Wisconsin and Georgia game, and save for an explosive offensive output against LSU, just really didn't look that great the rest of the season. It was hit or miss, explosive plays or bust. But the interesting thing is, after these two games, the Bama fans came out and Bama came out optimistic, and Bama looked poised to make the playoffs, possibly win the SEC championship. and be a contender for the Natty in DeBoer's first season. And definitely optimism abounded, but the rest of the season proved to be a disappointment as they could not sustain that championship level of play for 4 quarters, game after game, and make the playoffs and progress as that goes. So let's jump into the Wisconsin game. Alabama went into Madison, Wisconsin, and beat down the Badgers 42-10 in a game played at Camp Randall Stadium in Madison. Madison, one of those traditional college towns that you think of around the U.S., and it was great for Alabama to go on the road and get a big win and get the first big road win of Kalen DeBoer's era. Unfortunately, the road proved to be this team's undoing in its 3 regular season losses, and the road trip for the game in Tampa was also not a great success. And so all 4 losses were on the road. So this was a great win, but it didn't pretend that Alabama would be a great road team the rest of the season. In terms of the offense, Alabama was potent in this game. Jalen Milroe threw for 3 touchdowns. He ran for 2 more. He had big explosive plays and had key touchdown passes to Ryan Williams and Josh Cuevas. And then also Jamarian Miller had a notable rushing touchdown. Alabama took an early lead after Wisconsin kicked an early field goal. Alabama quickly took control, scoring a touchdown in the first quarter and adding 2 more in the second quarter to go up 21-3. Wisconsin struggled moving the ball throughout the game, and they committed 2 turnovers. But the biggest problem with Wisconsin is that Alabama knocked their quarterback out early in the game, and they really didn't have a competent backup quarterback to come in and effectively move the ball and throw passes. So let's talk about Milroe's performance first off, since he had a great performance. Milroe showcased his dual threat, big play capability, explosive play capability. He was 12 of 17 for 196 yards and 3 touchdown passes. He also rushed for 75 yards on 14 carries and accounted for 5 touchdowns in total. So he had a great day. It was an amazing, and it actually was the most productive touchdown day for any quarterback since Johnny Manziel in 2020. So great performance by Milroe. The defense limited Wisconsin to under 300 yards, forced 4 fumbles and recovered 2 of them. They also knocked out the quarterback for Wisconsin. They had multiple sacks in the game as Wisconsin was really ineffective throughout the game and struggled behind the backup quarterback after we knocked out their starter, Tyler Van Dyke. In summary, let's talk about what happened. Wisconsin took a 3-0 lead on a field goal, and then Alabama responded quickly. They connected on a 31-yard touchdown pass from Milroe to Ryan Williams, big explosive play. Then they scored again when Wisconsin fumbled the ball and gave Alabama the ball in the red zone, and quickly Milroe was able to run the ball in for a touchdown. And then Alabama extended it on a Milroe 26-yard touchdown pass to Jeremy Bernard to take the lead to 21-3 at halftime. In the third quarter, Jam Miller ran 34 yards for a touchdown, and then Milroe had another 10-yard run for a touchdown, and then the scoring was capped off to get it to 42-10 when Cuevas had a 37-yard touchdown reception in the fourth quarter for the final score. So let's look at the scoring drives, which just again highlight the fact that Bama's drives were highlighted and powered by explosive plays. They were not 10, 12-yard drives where you'd pick up 3 yards, 5 yards, 8 yards. No, there was usually 2 or 3 or even 1 explosive play on each drive, which got Alabama in the end zone. So on the first scoring drive, it was 4 plays for 60 yards, capped off by a Milroe 26-yard run for a touchdown on first down. Let me take that back. Milroe ran for 26 yards for a first down to get Alabama in the red zone, and then it was capped off by a 31-yard TD pass to Ryan Williams. So on the 60 yards, you had 2 plays that picked up 57 yards of those 60 yards, and it was only a 4-play drive. So again, explosive plays, move the ball down the field. On the second scoring drive, there were 7 plays for 28 yards with a Milroe 3-yard TD run that scored, but Alabama recovered a fumble and started out at the Wisconsin 28-yard line, and then it took them 7 plays to go 28 yards, but did punch it in for a score and was helped by a Wisconsin penalty that gave them a first down in that drive. But again, they got the ball on a turnover, had a short field, and were able to punch it in. And so I wouldn't call that a long, sustained drive. Milroe runs it in for a second touchdown of the day. The third scoring drive was 2 plays for 73 yards. You had a 47-yard pass play to Ryan Williams, followed up by a 26-yard pass to Jeremy Bernard for a touchdown. And now Bama's up 21-3 at the half. They come out in the second half. They go 5 plays for 75 yards. And the touchdown was scored on a 34-yard run by Jalen Milroe. Prior to that, they had a 23-yard pass to Jeremy Bernard to pick up a first down, and then Bama converted a 3rd and short to get another first down before Jalen Milroe rambled for 34 yards and a score. So you had 2 big explosive plays picking up the chunk of the yardage as they scored. Bama's up 28-3 in the third quarter. On the 5th scoring drive, it was 3 plays for 18 yards. Bama recovered a fumble, got it on the Wisconsin 18-yard line, and in 3 plays, they scored with Milroe going for 10 yards and a TD. Short field, punches it in, gets a touchdown. Great job. That's what you want. And then on the 6th scoring drive, Bama got the ball at the Wisconsin 37. Again, had a short field. Hit Josh Cuevas on first down for a 37-yard TD to make it 42-10. So all the scoring plays were highlighted by big explosive plays and Bama getting a short field and being able to punch it in. Great job, great win. In terms of the Bama defense against Wisconsin, they forced 2 fumbles and knocked the Wisconsin quarterback out of the game. The Bama defense, and really just all around, Bama was bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic, and it was just a beat down of Wisconsin, and a great job by Alabama rolling in there and flexing its muscle against a mid-level Big Ten team, as Wisconsin didn't prove to be a high-level team, but they weren't a terrible team. But Alabama went in, flexed its muscle, ran its record to 3-0, and then next after that came the showdown against Georgia. So now let's move to the Alabama-Georgia game. Alabama's coming into the game 3-0. Georgia's 3-0. Big showdown in Tuscaloosa. And Alabama gets off to a really strong start and then holds on and barely wins 41-34 after running up the score and taking a 28-0 lead and going in at halftime up 30-7. Georgia came out strong in the second half and made it a game. So let's jump into the key points of the game, and then we'll jump into the drives that were significant. So number one, Alabama had a strong start, scored 21 points in the first half, jumped up 28-0. Then Georgia went down the field, punched it in for 7. Alabama gets a safety and goes in 30-7 at halftime. There were turnovers. There were a lot of things that allowed Alabama to jump up on Georgia, but then Georgia came roaring back in the second half and actually took a lead at 34-33 late in the fourth quarter. And Alabama's offense, after putting up 28 points in the first half and getting a safety, only had a field goal in the second half up until about 3 minutes to go when Jalen Milroe, on the first play with less than 3 minutes to go, connected with Ryan Williams on a circus catch run and evade for a 75-yard touchdown pass to give Alabama the lead, 41-34. Bama scores, converts the 2 points, and jumps up 41-34 and then holds on for the win. But certainly the second half left you feeling like Bama had a lot of issues to work out and was lucky to win the game and survive this shootout with Georgia. It was a very dramatic game, but left the Bama fans elated, feeling like they were playoff bound, feeling like they could contend for the SEC championship and feeling like they were certainly in contention to win a natty. That proved to be false hope, and Bama struggled the rest of the way, but let's talk about it. So on the final drive, Georgia got the ball back down 41-34. Georgia drives into the red zone, and then Xavier Brown intercepts the pass to allow Alabama to get the ball and stop the Georgia drive in the red zone as Georgia's driving to try to score and either tie the game and send it into overtime, or probably go for two and try to steal a win after a terrible first half by Georgia. But Xavier Brown gets the game-saving interception. Alabama runs out the clock. So here are key performances from the game. Jalen Milroe had a Heisman-worthy performance, and he certainly looked like a leading contender for the Heisman after 4 games. But again, that is issues down the rest of the season in the remaining games. Again, it proved that it was an illusion that he was actually a Heisman contender. But he had 374 yards passing and 2 touchdowns, two TD passes, and then he ran for 117 yards and 2 more rushing touchdowns. He had a great game. Ryan Williams had 177 yards on 6 catches, including the game-winning touchdown pass. Alabama defense forced 3 interceptions and 1 fumble, so they got 4 turnovers and had 3 sacks and 6 tackles for their loss, as well as getting a much-needed safety in the first half to pad the score going into halftime. So it was a great game, exciting game. Showed that Alabama, at its best, could win a national championship and could compete with anybody. But it also exposed some issues that would come into play later. So let's go ahead and look at Alabama, their scoring drives, and what it showed about this Alabama offense. Scoring drive. First drive was 8 plays for 70 yards, capped by Milroe's 7-yard TD run. But again, it was big plays that moved the ball down the field. Milroe hit Emmanuel Henderson, and you all go, who? And that's exactly what I said. I can't even remember who Emmanuel Henderson is, but he hit him for 34 yards to put Bama in the red zone, and that was the big play in the drive. Then Bama also got 2 Georgia penalties to give them key first downs to keep the drive alive. Bama punches it in on the Milroe run for 7 yards. Bama's up 7-0. On the second score, it was 6 plays for 86 yards, and Bama scored on a 16-yard wheel route from Milroe to Jam Miller for the score. You really didn't see this type of play work very often for the Bama offense, but they worked it to perfection in this game. Strive also had a 23-yard run by Justice Haynes for a first down, and then Milroe hit Ryan Williams for 21 yards as well for a first down. So there were 4 big explosive plays that moved the ball down the field as Milroe also hit Law for a 19-yard first down. Bama goes up 14-0. 4 big plays. It was not a shove it down your throat, Georgia. And Georgia has a good defense, so hard to do. But they had 4 explosive plays to go 84 yards and score and go up 14-0. Bama then picks off a Carson Beck pass, takes over at the Georgia 22, and goes 3 plays for 22 yards and scores on a 7-yard run by Jeremy Bernard. Short field, able to punch it in, didn't have to settle for a field goal. Bama up 21-0. Then Bama gets the ball back again. They go 6 plays for 76 yards with Milroe scoring on a run, on a 36-yard run. Again, explosive plays made up more than half of the yards as Bama punches it in. They're up 28-0, and they go into the half on a 30-7 lead after Georgia scores to make it 28-7. Then Bama is able to force a safety and take the lead at half. In the second half, Bama gets the ball back. They go 7 plays for 69 yards, but they bog down and have to settle for a 28-yard field goal. And it was a big play of 54 yards from Milroe to Ryan Williams that got the ball down to the Georgia 13-yard line. But then the Georgia defense stiffened. The Bama drive stalls out. Bama kicks a field goal. They're up 33-15 in the third quarter. On the seventh drive, Bama stalls out and does nothing. Georgia then takes the lead 34-33 with 2:31 left. And then Bama gets the ball back and scores in one play on that big circus catch by Ryan Williams on the pass from Milroe, takes it 75 yards, beats two defenders, and scores. And then Bama's able to hold off Georgia by intercepting the ball in the end zone and then taking it out on the 20 on the touchback, and is able to run the clock out. So first half, Alabama looked dominant. They were able to force turnovers. They were able to score. Georgia wasn't sure what to do. Georgia's defense stiffened up, only gave up 10 points to Alabama or rather 11 points in the second half. As Alabama is able to score the key 11 points to get the win. But Georgia's defense really figured out Bama, and other than letting Ryan Williams make that big explosive play, they were able to contain Milroe and not let the receivers get behind the defense and make those big plays as Georgia came rolling back and made it quite the exciting game. Let's go over a couple of things that I think are really key to understand. Is in the second half, in the second half, Georgia was 5 for 5 on fourth down. So when Georgia needed to make big plays on fourth down, Alabama was not able to come up with the stops. That will rear its ugly head later in the season and hurt Alabama as they lose some games on an inability to stop teams from converting key third downs and key fourth downs. And on penalties, Georgia had 6 for 50 yards that really helped Alabama in some key situations, but Alabama had 10 penalties for 90 yards. So again, Alabama was bit by the penalty bug, something that Alabama is going to have to clean up this year because the penalties really hurt the team all year, whether it's holding penalties, personal foul penalties, pass interference. Those penalties really hurt Alabama in terms of in key spots. Really putting them in a bad position and stopping drives or extending drives when the defense made key penalties. So those things duly noted, but Alabama gets the win, 4-0, had a great start to the season. This was really the high point of the season, was these two back-to-back big wins. And then Alabama really reached its peak and then faded from there as they finished the season 5-4 after starting 4-0. It was really quite the mediocre end to a great start to the season, but we'll deal with that in a future episode. But these are the things that issues that came up after the 4 games and the 4 wins that would really hurt Alabama down the stretch, but would also show what this team could be. So number one, the quarterback, Milroe, was boom or bust. It was explosive plays in the run game, hitting deep passes for explosive pass plays, or not effective. He was not good in the short and intermediate game. He was not good in being precise in those 3, 5, 7, 8 yard completions that keep the chains moving in key second, third, and fourth downs. Really hurt the offense, their inability to, when the teams stopped the over-the-top passes and loaded the line for the run game and stopped Milroe in the run game, for him being able to pick the team apart for those key short intermediate passes. The offensive line, due to scheme and due to technique and talent, was not effective in the run game or in the traditional pass protection. They were good in these games compared to how they were in other games, but still the O-line was not what you expect out of an Alabama team. They were not able to just line up and run the ball and put together a 10 to 12 play drive and just run the ball down a team's throat. And then when the team loaded the line, pick up that 3, 5, 7 yard pass play to put the defense on its heels and not allow them to put 8 and 9 men in the box and take advantage of quick openings when blitzed and make teams pay for blitzing Milroe. Because when you blitzed Milroe, good things happened for the defense, and that was proven out over the season. So offensive line also struggled with some holding penalties. The The offense overall was not effective in putting together 10 to 13 play drives. It was either boom or bust. Big plays would keep the drives alive, or Bama would settle for a field goal or would punt. The defense was penalty prone and blew coverages, and they did get some turnovers, and they did force a safety, and that was great. But overall, the defense proved that it had issues blowing coverages, as Carson Beck was able to take advantage of blown coverages, where in the South Florida game, they had some open receivers, but their quarterback just was not accurate enough to be able to see those and make those throws. So they didn't pay for it against South Florida, but Carson Beck, particularly in the second half, was able to pick apart the Alabama defense and keep the ball moving down the field. It exposed those issues that would come about. Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard proved themselves to be big-time receivers who can get open and make big plays in the passing game, but Milroe was not able to find those receivers consistently enough on the season and on key second and third down plays, and also on plays where blitzes were coming to make teams pay for how good they were, because Milroe just wasn't able to get them the ball and make them pay. Defense was talented, but not dialed in, and was mistake prone in making both penalties and blowing assignments. So those are the key things that we'll talk about in future episodes as we rewind and relook at the 2024 season. But those are the things that they're going to have to fix if they want to be a championship level, which is what's expected of Alabama. They're expected to be in the hunt for the championship, to contend and to play for national champions. And the level of play and the mistakes that were made are not up to the level of where Alabama needs to be in 2025 if they want to win the national championship. So let's talk about it. After big wins over Wisconsin and Georgia, Bama looked like a playoff team. They looked like a contender for the Natty. They looked like they would be in the SEC championship game, but those looks proved to be deceiving as the issues for this team were exposed in the coming weeks, even more so than they were exposed to date. And after Alabama had put out tape and you could see the team on film, you could see how good coaches were able to expose Alabama's weaknesses, both on offense and on defense, and make Alabama pay for those issues in the passing game on offense, in having a quarterback that was not effective in the short intermediate passing game, to expose the line problems in their inability to really get a good push and blow teams off the line, and also in the defense in their inability to cover correctly, and in the run game. Alabama's defensive line was not as stout in the running game in key games that they needed to be to shut down offenses when opposing teams' offenses when their own offensive team was struggling. So anyway, that's been a relook, a rewind to a great 4-0 start to the season in 2024 with convincing wins at Wisconsin and beating Georgia at home. There was extreme optimism for how good this Alabama team could be, but unfortunately, that all came crashing down in future weeks with disappointing losses on the road. But we will talk about that in a future episode. Appreciate all of you listening. This has been another episode of the Bamateur Hour. We appreciate you. Keep tuning in. Thank you to all the listeners. I am Bama John. This is the Bamateur Hour. Talk to you again soon. God bless and roll Tide.